Oh, well, good day there. So, I think everybody would probably like it if I reviewed Eclipse, the newest entry in the Twilight Saga. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Man, Twilight. Bunch of ravenous girls losing their minds over a bunch of nonsense. Vampires, werewolves. I mean, there's always something that comes around every once in a while that makes people go insane in the membrane, and that happens to be Twilight within the past few years. So now Eclipse came out, the third movie in the series. It was also the third book in this series, however you want to look at it. Well, I know I gave a pretty decent review to New Moon because it was the first ever Twilight movie I ever saw, and I had to say I didn't think it was that bad. Well, now that I've spent enough time around the Twilight Saga, I think my opinion kind of changes a little bit on New Moon, and it's a little bit less positive than it used to be. My opinion towards that film, but now I'm gonna have to say that this series is getting a little bit laughable, to say the very least. Where do I start? Where do I start about Eclipse? Okay, first of all, maybe I should say the horrible acting. Kristen Stewart takes the cake in this film. I've never seen such a bland and boring character ever before in my life. I mean, this girl is just, she's such a hot commodity between Edward and Jacob, and I couldn't even see why anybody would be interested in such a bland, boring, lifeless creature such as Bella. I mean, she's just a total snooze fest to look at, and Kristen Stewart is just, she's just a debauchery as an actress. She's completely void of any talent at all, and oh man, and Kristen Stewart's acting is abysmal, and it helps because you know what? This movie actually has some credit to its name. It's a credible movie only because sometimes it entertains like no other film before it. There is one scene, and I'm probably not getting the quote exactly, and I just found out that this was actually quoted in the book, but they actually stripped the quote down, which is actually probably even better because when I read the quote from the text in the book, it was even worse. But now in this more condensed version, I gotta recite this quote as best I can. There's one scene where Jacob and Edward are arguing over Bella, saying, "I want her, no, I want her. Oh, she's in love with me." You know what? But then Bella gets between them, and she puts her hands out, like trying to keep us separated, and goes, "That's it. From now on, when you two fight, I'm Switzerland." I mean, come on here, folks. That has to be the absolute worst piece of dialogue I've ever heard in my life. I mean, not only is that just unbeatably hilarious. I mean, it's just such a poor decision in dialogue choice. I mean, wow, where the fuck did they come up with that in the book and in the movie? I mean, wow, just that's not even tolerable. That's just funny. That's just sad. That's just all of those things combined into one. What else is just not great? The action is pretty good. When the werewolves and the vampires fight it out, there's a part where the good vampires, which is Edward's little team, and the werewolves that Jacob is on, they have to team up. First they train with each other, and then they team up against the bad vampires, which is the squad of New Blood, I think is what they call them, and they're just out of control, sucking the blood out of everybody that comes along. But this movie, and I've got to really concentrate on this because I don't think I mentioned it enough in my New Moon review. This movie just breaks all the traditions of vampires. Sparkly vampires out in the sun. Edward the vampire laying out in a flower field like this with Bella tickling her nose while the sun's beating down on his ass. He should be fucking fried. He should be turned into dust. That's what's supposed to happen to vampires when they're exposed to sunlight. Remember, when dawn strikes, those guys got to get the fuck out of there. They're not allowed to stay there, but they do anyway. Don't understand it. It's probably not worth analyzing, but we're going to do it anyway in this review. So, there's that. And then when the vampires fight, and, you know, like the werewolves chew on their arms, they break their limbs off like as if they were some type of porcelain statue. I mean, and it even makes that sound clink, like if you broke a statue in your house or in a museum. It's a lot like that. Vampires are not statues. Vampires are creatures. I mean, what the hell is going on with these filmmakers? I mean, was it like that in the book? I've never read the books, but it shouldn't be like that regardless. If it was like that in the books, they should make up for it and change it in the movies. I mean, at least try to fix this shit. It's horrible. I can't see anybody approving of a decision like that. I mean, wow. Just unbelievable. It's vampires that defy the rules of vampires. So they're not really vampires. They're Twilight vampires. They're these moronic versions, the stripped down versions of vampires. I hate it. I don't like it. What else can be said? But yeah, the fight scenes are good. I enjoyed them. You know, I guess you sort of have this type of liking for it because I guess I'm sort of brainwashed in the way into at least thinking the movie's decent because there's so much hype around it. But my God, I mean, I wasn't really embarrassed to go see this movie because I went to go see it with a couple, with two of my friends who were a couple, and so I went to go see it with them. And the thing is, and I was embarrassed to go see it, but I saw that girls were coming out, and they weren't even with dudes. They were just by themselves. It was a group of girls that were friends, and they were just in the theater. And, you know, the night that we went actually on opening night, first Wednesday, but we got turned away because it was too crazy. It was too loud. I couldn't sit through a film like that. The night after we went to go see it, and we're sitting in there, and the girls are just going crazy. I mean, there's a scene where Jacob has to warm up Bella because she's sleeping in a tent at the peak of a mountaintop, and obviously Edward's cold-blooded, so he can't do it. So Jacob offers to do it for her, and so when Jacob kneels down to warm her up, he turns to Edward and goes, "I'm hotter than you." And there's one girl who goes behind me and says, "Yes, you are." Wow, I mean, come on. It's sad. It really is sad. And I can't really take it anymore. I mean, this is too much. Too much, folks. The Twilight franchise craze is just too much to bear. But, you know, you're probably going to go see this movie anyway. It's decent. It's sort of subpar. I mean, wow. Just, you know, you're not going to pay attention to this review anyway, but Twilight is seriously overrated. And just all you got to say is Switzerland, I guess.